Go ahead.
Okay, guys. So we're here with Dean Morel, one of the top teachers at Gulliver Pratt Academy, and also the faculty, sponsor for Zoma Omicron. That's how you
Uh,
say it?
Zeta Omicron,
Zeta Omicron.
Society,
Okay,
yeah, the National Society for Computer Science.
absolutely. So we're very excited. Dean has accepted this interview as a volunteered way, okay, because we are part of ShareNest. ShareNest is a platform that is revolutionizing how volunteering happens in the world, and we giving the people opportunity to, with just a raise of our hand, find opportunities to give back in their talents in any nonprofit around the entire world. So Dean, thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for accepting being interviewed, and let's begin. Okay, so first question to you, it's obviously related to giving back. You're a person that it's all about volunteering. You're all about, thinking about the community. Tell us about some of the work that you do related to volunteerism, and what's the importance of that to you for your profession and for your personal life.
Well, first of all, thank you, Joseph, for the opportunity to speak on your platform. I know that the people that are going to be hearing this in the future, I'm hoping we'll be able to establish some really good connections community-wise. And one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about is this idea of service learning. So why is it that Gulliver students do outreach on such a wonderful level? And I think it has to do with the fact that a few years ago, Frank Steele over at Gulliver School decided to implement this idea of service learning, which is basically taking your academic study, um, practical experience, and putting it out there in the community in the form of outreach in an effort to try to increase this idea of civic education and experiential learning. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to give you some ideas about what it is as we continue this conversation. But I think the key, Yosef, has to do with taking the students' desire to help those in underserved areas in our community and combining it with academic study and going outside the confines of the classroom. And I'll be more than happy to give you some examples. I also have with us today Mark Seymour, who's one of the parents who's been instrumental in this idea of service learning. And I also have Sabrina Sharma, who's a student at Gulliver. She will be entering the, is it the 12th grade, Sabrina? Are you entering the 12th grade?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sabrina can talk a little bit about her experience with CARE Elementary and FIRST Robotics. And I can also have Mark Seymour talk a little bit about something called CR coding. So whenever you'd like to answer some of your questions, Joseph, we'll be more than happy to do so.
Absolutely. Very cool. So let's go before we start all that, because I think, nowadays purpose is something very, very important. What's the purpose behind service learning? Why it is so valuable for students to do service learning?
Okay, so one of the things that Gulliver does extremely well is academics. But academics confined to the classroom doesn't really address the different dimensions that we'd like students to kind of develop before they graduate from Gulliver. So yes, it is important, Joseph, to be able to do very well academically. In fact, I've had some students that are going here to Ivy League schools, Stanford, Yale, MIT, Harvard, Northwestern, Duke. You know, these are all wonderful, wonderful top tier schools. So the academics is there. But what about other things like helping people, our senior citizens during this pandemic? What about helping those that are going through cognitive deterioration? What about helping those students that don't have access to STEM reinforcement, STEM courses? These are the things, Joseph, that students learn to do. And we, in an effort to try to make a more well-rounded individual and more conscious individual, we go ahead and we do service learning. So remember, service learning is an attempt to do community outreach, volunteerism, to also do, to heighten their civic education by what it is that they're learning in the classroom and actually taking it outside the confines of the classroom in an effort to help those in the community that may not have access to the same quality education that Gulliver can provide.
It's amazing. Very, very, very special. No, I think the concept of allowing students to have their first experience hands-on, with the nonprofits, with the right purpose, that they're thinking now bigger also about giving back, I think is such a, amazing education platform, right? I think that maybe sort of the way I'm understanding that you're looking at it is like looking at a nonprofit world as a platform for the students to train, not only to train themselves in what they're learning in the classroom, the theory, which obviously by Gulliver is delivered at a very high level. Now they can go and experience that into the physical, the real world, let's say it. But together with it, it comes the community care, right? The sense of belonging, the sense of now I have a responsibility from everything that I'm learning to add value. So I think it's super, super beautiful, this work. Now, how do you choose the right activities?
Okay, so one of the things that we like to do in computer science and engineering is involve our parents from day one. So one of the people that are going to be speaking very soon, Mark Seymour, we involved the parents as soon as we identified a particular passion that the students had. And in the case of a few students at Gulliver a few years ago, their passion was to try to teach computer science to students who may not have necessarily had the opportunity to do so at school. So they developed a platform called CR Coding. And I'm going to go ahead and, Mark, are you there? Mark Seymour? Mark, are you there? I think Mark may not be available. Oh yeah. Okay, Mark. Hey, how you doing?
Very well. So,
Mark, can you go ahead and speak a little bit about how CR Coding came to be in the context of, Gulliver and these students, including your son, who were freshmen, and talk about the genesis of CR Coding.
Sure. So first, I'm on this call out of respect for Dean Morrell, who basically should be considered a national treasure to Gulliver schools.
Absolutely.
Basically, what Dean did was, we sat down, but Dean cut away a lot of the red tape that would have impacted our children having a great experience. And he was able to put the resources together to enable them to create this great platform. At the back end of 9th grade,
we're losing you a little bit.
Dean, Claude, Sharon, myself, and create a worthwhile experience for our children to implement through computer science and to impact the community. Dean was able to shepherd us through a meeting with Frank Steele, who is all on board. And it took quite a while. He dedicated an incredible amount of progress, and us as parents were very enthusiastic about seeing the project going forward. Every time there was a slight pitfall, logistical pitfall, for instance, once the platform was fully developed after 3 years of work, submit potential candidates to Dean. Dean?
Mark, I'm so sorry.
Went ahead, basically rolled the candidates. I'm sorry. So we were able to figure out a way to introduce candidates to our sons and daughters to teach them how CR coding worked and to propagate the mission of CR coding. And I think the reward that they got by being present, instead of just developing this app, in addition to all the accolades, but the first day that they went to Care Elementary and were able to see the look on the children's faces and the sense of satisfaction, I think that brought it all together. After working for 3.5 years, pretty remarkable. The video that was brought back and we were able to view was fantastic. And I think that created an imprimatur for our sons and daughters going forward and really brought this home. I think that, the head of school and the administration was behind this at every stage, thanks to Dean. They saw the success of this program and the level of empowerment it brought towards our kids being effective in the community and being able to impact in spite of their age. So I think it's given us, impetus to move forward, regardless of whether we're 9th graders or 12th graders, that we could have an impact on the community. And I think Dean has taken us in different directions. So I will digress and turn it back over to Dean. But again, I want to thank Dean. I think what he also did, and this is just a postscript, is he made all of our kids so much more interesting as applicants to top universities because they substantiated themselves by getting involved in community service programs. And these programs really piqued the application process, and enabled our children something substantive to speak to during the interview process, and really rounded them out so they're more interesting and ready to take that next step, both of civil service and the academic and their academics.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. What a wonderful compliment, and I appreciate your feedback. One of the things, Joseph, that's crucial is to have buy-in from the parents, because the students have this passion, but this passion, Joseph, is sort of like kind of in a nebulous stage. And then with the energy and the commitment from the parents, with the energy and the commitment from the teachers and the schools, and of course, the community that we were ultimately going to help, we were able to mold that passion and channel it in the right direction to create wonderful things like an app for students to be able to use for this programming platform, to be able to present this app to members of Congress. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share the screen real quickly.
Sure.
This, Joseph, as you can see on the screen, we're looking at students from Gulliver who have created their own kind of nonprofit volunteering platform and or app and or program. And all 4 of these groups would eventually or ultimately go to Washington and present their apps to members of Congress through something called the Congressional App Challenge. Now, this group here, AED, they created an app that will tell people in real time in Dade County where the closest external defibrillator is in the event that a person is having a cardiac event. They were the only ones that were not able to go to Washington because of the pandemic. But all of these other students were able to go, including CR coding, which you see there. All of these students, including Mark's son, Jake here, they were all able to go to Washington and present their idea, not only to members of Congress, but to people in companies that represent companies like Google and Apple and Microsoft and Amazon Web Services. So these are the companies that they would ultimately intern with if they should decide to pursue a career in computer science or engineering at the college level. So these are all things that can happen should you take this passion that students have, channel it in the right way, combine it with their academic work, as well as outreach, all in the form of a service learning project, which they then develop throughout the year, and then they reflect on it at the end of the year. And it serves as a way to not only have them go out into the community and do good things, but it also helps them with other things, like Mark mentioned. It helps them with their college application process, and it helps them really develop into people that are altruistic and end up running their own type of NPOs later on.
Or even businesses, right? To even run businesses with the right intention and, thinking about stakeholders is just such a beautiful, I see so many positives of, left to right, even for the student to have a real, real-time experience. They're developing apps that are going to potentially be used in the market, right? And all that maybe they would only be able to build a known app when they become like, the director of an organization, become the CTO of a tech company now, but now they're doing this at a young age. They have now a new resume, right? Let's put it like that they can offer not only to the colleges, but also to potential businesses, right? That they're going to hire him initially, right? Because one of the things that we hear a lot is that, students sometimes knock on doors of organizations and the organizations say, what's your experience? And the students say, well, I don't have it. And then they say, okay, go get experience and come back. Well, you're offering your students experience that now they say, listen, I built an app for a nonprofit. Let me work for you, right? So it's unbelievable.
Exactly. Now, I would also like to introduce now, Joseph, Sabrina Sharma. Sabrina actually did absolutely fantastic work at a place in Overtown here in Miami called Care Elementary. Now, Care Elementary, about 60% of the students at Care live in what the county considers unstable housing. So what we've been able to do is we've been able to make a connection with those students at Care. We've been able to show them some critical STEM skills that even their science and math teachers were able to tell us later on in the year that it had definitely made an impact. Now, what is it that made the impact, Joseph? Because, of course, there's a lot of people that actually do outreach, right? Sometimes they do outreach maybe every 3 months. Sometimes they go one Saturday a month. No, what we did was twice a month for the entire year. We went to Care, and we went there after school, so we didn't have to bother the students during their academic coursework. And then from 4 to almost 6 o'clock, every other Friday, we showed them skills. So I'm gonna go ahead, and while I'm running a little slideshow in the background, I'm gonna have Sabrina talk about Care Elementary, okay? This is one of the most nurturing, outstanding students that I have. She is going to be a member of Zeta Omicron this August. Congratulations, Sabrina. She made the Honor Society. Sabrina, go ahead and talk a little bit about Care Elementary while I'm running the slideshow in the background, okay?
So yeah, Care is, like Mr. Morel said, is an extremely rewarding experience. I also teach coding to girls at Girls Who Code, and Care, just teaching at Care is so much more rewarding for me. Basically what we do is we, like Morel said, bi-monthly we go to Care and we teach lessons ranging from Scratch to JavaScript to Tinkercad. And every time it's a new experience because you get to work with different kids, but then at the same time, some of the kids like recognize you. And so it's like a nice relationship that you're able to form with the kids. And it's really nice to be able to teach to kids who otherwise wouldn't be able to learn anything about computational thinking if it weren't for us. So overall, it's extremely rewarding and it's extremely worthwhile. And yeah.
That's amazing. I don't know if you guys know a little bit about my story, but one of the reasons why I decided to build ShareNest is because, I was working for a big financial industry, like for Merrill Lynch, for a big bank, and then I moved to become a director of a school. international school, and I was super depressed because I wasn't fulfilled. So I quit everything and I went to volunteer for a nonprofit. And my biggest, besides getting out of my depressions, the biggest lesson that I got from the experience, like it was an 8 months basically volunteering trial, was that when you give back, you're not only serving the world, right, and helping others, but you're helping yourself, right? And I think that that's extremely fulfilling. So my question to you, Sabrina, is what are the biggest takeaways for you as a person doing this, these experiences and these activities at CARE?
So I know it's cliche to say like it makes you a better person, but it really does, honestly.
In what levels?
So I feel like I've become like, other than like life skills, like I've become a better communicator and such and such. I feel like I've also learned like the languages and everything like that better. So like I've become like, I've been able to, because I feel like when you teach, you have to know more than the surface level, obviously. But then as you teach, like when they ask you questions, you begin to like inquire in ways that you wouldn't have before. So like the other perspectives of like a new faith, a new learning, like every time you just get new questions and everything like that. And it makes you think of like, let's say Scratch in a way that you never thought of before, or like this new button, like you never really looked at it, you never really knew it existed, but then child A asked you about it, and now that's all you can think about, if you know what I mean. So I feel like other than that, it's made me more of like a better person, as I said before, because I've realized how much Gulliver has given us to like make us better people. All the opportunities we're given, like that are not given to other kids in other schools. It's just really amazing to see that we're literally able to choose what we want to do and like really craft who we want to become, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. Absolutely. One of the things that I learned, I read the other day in LinkedIn, is LinkedIn says that, hard skills, which is, computer science or engineering, that's all, changing so fast that obviously you need to keep yourself on track of it, right? Because whatever you're going to learn now, tomorrow is obsolete, right? You have to learn it again and again. But what really is going to define the new, leaders of the world, the new employees of the world, is their soft skills, right? Which is what you mentioned: communication skills, time management, leadership, empathy, and all that you have mentioned, that some shape or form you learn. So I think it's like such a special learning experience that you guys are doing that is just like amazing. Now, Dean.
That's one thing, Joseph, that if you don't mind, I'd like to just quickly emphasize. You can actually do, or students, I should say, can actually do amazing work in the community, but at the same time, learn those soft skills: effective public speaking, collaborative skills, being able to come up with an idea that is empathetic. All of these things can be done along with outreach. Those are not mutually exclusive things. So I would encourage those teachers and administrators that are going to be listening to this later on Instagram and on other social media platforms, I would encourage the teachers to come up with projects, or help students come up with projects that not only will help develop their hard skills, like Sabrina said. I hadn't thought about this particular event handler and using MIT Scratch platform until I did the outreach, and I was able to do it with some students, and students asked me about it. So I had to go deeper into the subject area. Okay, yes, that is one wonderful outcome of doing the outreach. But in addition to that, effective public speaking, being able to present your idea, your platform to experts, getting constructive feedback from them, working collaboratively to redesign your idea, and to eventually go ahead and put it out there like Mark's CR coding, the CR coding students did. That is something that can be all done and developed at high school, and they're not mutually exclusive.
It's amazing. Very special, Now, Dean, I think also for the professors and for administrators that are going to be listening to this in the future, how can they, or what's the strategy for them, or what's the formula, let's put it like that, for them to present this to the leaders of the organization, to the leaders of the school in a successful way? What do they need to plan before? What is, like, you know, the little, can you sort of guide us, take us through a little bit of what's the package that they need to present in order to be able to be accepted?
Okay, so first and foremost, Joseph, there's got to be buy-in from the teacher, him or herself. If the teacher doesn't feel comfortable giving control to the students, this is not going to happen. The reason why Sabrina did an outstanding job and why CR Coding did an outstanding job is because, in a way, we at Gulliver, we kind of sat back and we let them kind of decide after we had created and fully developed this idea collaboratively, we kind of let them take a certain direction with the project. And, you know, it's very difficult because people are still following this teacher-centric model. This teacher-centric model, yes, it worked very well, but back in the 1950s, okay? Now, we need to do something called peer-to-peer learning, okay? So Sabrina develops this wonderful platform for students in the middle school at Gulliver to be able to better learn, for example, robotics. Okay, Sabrina's a wonderful robotics student. Well, the teacher has to feel comfortable enough to have Sabrina and her peers be able to take over the class and kind of facilitate instruction. Now, yes, if there is an issue, if there's some type of you know, question in terms of the content, yes, the teacher's there to kind of guide the peer instructors. But for the most part, the students are left to be able to have this interaction with the students and be able to just have them learn. You know, it's not
co-create, right?
Exactly. So this, you know, we've gone from a teacher-centric pedagogy to student-centered at one point to now peer-to-peer. So basically, at one point, the student, before peer-to-peer, yes, there was student-centered learning involved, and students were actually kind of picking up a lot of information by doing research on the internet and so forth and synthesizing ideas. But now, it's not just about learning, it's about showing others what you've learned, and all in an effort to reinforce what it is that you've learned. So we need to be able to have buy-in from the teachers. Now, the second thing that the school has to do is they have to implement time in the curriculum to be able to do this. So Sabrina, just to let the audience be aware, how many hours did you put into First Robotics last year outside of the class, outside of the official class?
Although I don't know the number, we were there for Saturdays, all Saturdays for the most part, from January until the middle of March, from around like 9 to 6-ish.
Wow.
And then we were there after school starting February from 3:30 until 9:30-ish.
Wow.
So would it be fair to say that you spent hundreds and hundreds of hours outside of the official class?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you see, Joseph, you need to be able to take this peer-to-peer framework and you need to be able to somehow incorporate it in your classroom as well. You know, I had the CR coding class in my computer science class. They all took the AP computer science exam. They all did extremely well, by the way. But they didn't just learn Java in the AP computer science class. A lot of teachers just focus on the content and nothing else. Even the College Board came out with a framework called AP with WE, W-E. It's a service learning framework that one can implement inside of the AP class. Well, we have our own framework that we implement. And that's where ideas like CR coding come out. And what Sabrina has done with CARE Elementary and all these other students, one of my students created an app that will help people learn sign language in just a few hours. So these are the things that are not typically in a teacher's curriculum, but you have to give some time. You have to incorporate that in your curriculum if you're going to have a successful service learning project. So those are, I think, the two things, Joseph, that schools should focus on. Making sure that there's buy-in from the teacher and making sure that there's a framework that's established that can be implemented in the curriculum. It can't just be chapters 1 through 28, right, and then teach those chapters, even if you have the students teach it to themselves and then do an assessment every few weeks, and then that's the end of the year. You've lost so much valuable time if you just do that. You have to give the students time so that they can formulate these ideas and the passion that they have, so that they can create these wonderful platforms that they're developing that are helping. The last count, one of the CR coding students, Ishan Shah, is running analytics, Google Analytics. And the last time he spoke to me before the pandemic, over, I think, close to 4,000 students had signed on to CR coding and worked on the platform. So we are reaching students, and it's all because we were able to give them time to develop these things, time to develop lesson plans that are vetted afterwards by the teachers. Absolutely. Time to develop their speaking skills so that they could present their idea to members of Congress and to professionals like Mark Seymour at Gulliver. Time to be able to interact with those in the community that are underserved. And there are a lot, believe me, there are a lot of students in the community. I had an administrator down in Homestead that told me that, I'm going to paraphrase what she told me, but she basically said that resources stop south of a certain street in Miami-Dade. So since she's south of that street, a lot of the resources, she just doesn't have those resources available. That's why she was so grateful for the work that Sabrina and others did at the Title I Migrant Education Center in Homestead, as well as what CR Coding did, because they really filled a gap that they had as a result of cutbacks and funding issues.
Yeah. Wow, I feel that what you're doing is like the new norm for education, right? It's like a school of entrepreneurship, a school of life, a school of sustainability. There's like so many benefits for it, right? It's like unbelievable. And I know I was talking to somebody the other day that is the head of innovation for his head teacher for innovation in Arizona State, I think, which is the biggest public research school in the country. And he's telling me what's the new norm for education, right? He really believes that, information is going to be delivered potentially virtually, but the whole experience can definitely be done in the nonprofit world, can definitely be experimented, right? Because not only brings the people the opportunities that you just mentioned to build an individual, but then that sense of, of sustainability, that sense of caring for the stakeholders, of building something that is adding value to everybody, and you're taking resources from here and filling up the other side that there's lack, right? So amazing. So well, I'm sold. I'm sold, and I think that what we are doing is very aligned to what you guys are doing, and which is very unique, right? For the ones that don't know, ShareNest is basically a marketplace for online volunteer opportunities, right? So any type of graphic designer, coder, business students that they're looking for experiences and looking to do this type of service learning with the community, they can go online and just raise their hand and says, listen, this is my talent, this is what I would love to work on, and then boom, the nonprofits come after you, which is very unique approach, especially for what's happening now, right? So I think we're very, very in tune, which is amazing. Now, I would love, to conclude this interview to hear a message from each one of you guys, to a message from a teacher, a message from a student, a message from a parent, for students out there, for parents out there, for administration out there about service learning. Like you have to inspire. Yes.
I would like to.
Like if we.
So I'm a parent, Mark Seymour, and I know Dean Morell is very humble. And I'd like to put another feather in his cap, because what he did was he shepherded these children over the finish line. There's a palpable excitement. The enthusiasm is generated amongst them and their friends. He's made it cool to be involved with these projects. I think the administration sees this and recognizes the success, and success begets success. And I think you will have momentum going forward because of the projects that he worked with and initiated. And I see a lot more children, parents, administrators, and teachers getting on board because of the initiative of pushing this down the road to a successful conclusion. And even a non-successful conclusion is a successful conclusion if you put your time and your heart into it.
So Mark, let me ask you this. If we were to take this model, right, these case studies to the whole United States and sort of try to apply more service learning, to the nation, what would be your message to people that are listening there for them to consider, to bring it into the organization as a parent?
That it's a win for multiple parties. It's a win for the school's reputation. It's a win for the fulfillment of the parents. It's a win for the children being exposed to this at a certain age in their life. And it's a win for the teachers being able to shepherd through these projects.
Amazing. Very cool. Sabrina, what about you? What's the message for all the students out there, for you to motivate and inspire them to do more service learning in high school, in college, in their education life?
I think service learning is extremely important. It's vital. It's a way that you can use everything and anything you learn in the classroom and kind of apply it to the real world in a way that it benefits people in the best possible way. So service learning can never hinder you. In other words, it could always help you, and it's obviously helping other parties as well. And it's honestly a rewarding experience for both parties. So yeah, I think service learning is extremely important, and it's something that should be done more often.
Amazing.
Considered.
Very cool. And to conclude, Dean, your message to the United States of why we should have more service learning. Let's try to get this wave, right, that you have started at Gulliver, that apparently is just amazing. And I have worked with you before, that I saw the great work that you do. How can we push this forward and more people can can be on board of service learning?
Joseph, all one really needs to do is just listen and read the text messages and listen to the phone calls that I've gotten over this summer. And the summer is just like a few weeks into the summer, right? The text message and the phone calls of the students that have varied backgrounds, okay? Students that have just very basic skills in programming all the way to app developers. I get this. I hear the same theme in every call, and I see the same idea in every text message. Every student has a spirit of altruism. Every student wants to help, okay? I have a student right now, Joar Carvalho, okay? Wonderful, wonderful student. You met him, Yossi. Joao one time called me from Gulliver. This was just a few days ago. And he said, Mr. Morell, there's about 10 computers here that I see in your classroom that are not being used. May I fix them? Because my friend is going to Peru, and apparently their school year started in March. So their school year in Peru goes from March to December, something like that. And a lot of the students were apparently receiving their lessons because of the pandemic. They were receiving their lessons via shortwave radio, but they didn't have computers. It's a little small district called Cova district in Peru. And this little district, Cova, which is up in the mountains, there was no community center with computers. And a lot of the students didn't have iPads and so forth. So Joao actually repurposed 10 computers and laptops and sent them down to Peru, because one of the people doing missionary work there is actually going to create a little computer lab where students can go ahead and finish their homework and do research on the internet and so forth. To every student that I've been at Gulliver almost 30 years. Every student that I meet has this sense of altruism.
Wow.
It's just that some are afraid to develop it. Some don't know what they should do. Some are not aware of all of these wonderful projects that kids like Sabrina and CR Coding are doing. So it's up to us as teachers to try to channel, like I said, channel this energy, this sense of altruism, this passion that students have, channel it in a way that will help those less fortunate in our society through service learning. And I really hope that the message that Mark and Sabrina said today really resonate with the people that are listening to this.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Because today for me was like, a lesson of how to build the new leaders, the future. And I thank, the Gulliver family for being part of this. Again, it was like a big, big pleasure, not only educational wise for me, but very, very inspiring to hear that somehow all the different stakeholders are aligned, right, to the what's the ultimate goal of service learning, which from what I'm getting, it is not only to build, right, this new individual, this perfect, right, ideal human being, let's put it like that, but also to find ways to fill up different spaces in the world that need resources with the extra resources that we have it on the more fortunate side of the world, right? So thanks again, guys. Thank you so much for this interview, and I hope that this message can be spread to more and more schools around the country, and we can have more service learning, more initiatives like the ones you guys are doing at Gulliver. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.